That picture is wild. What a powerful panel, guys. It was some really, really, big gems of wisdom in there. And what I'm going to do here is I'm going to continue with the all-in theme because it's very clear that India has gone all in with cloud, AI, and a digital public infrastructure. Now, it's bold, it's fast, but it's also a little risky. I'm not going to stand here and tell you guys that security is super important because this audience knows that better than almost anybody else. But what I will say is that we have to fundamentally rethink how we chart our security journey in the era of AI. And let's be clear, right? We are a family. This is one team, and it's super important that this team gets it right because the stakes really are very, very high. Now, let me take a quick pulse check. Raise your hand if you're 100% confident that your tooling today will actually be able to stop a data breach before it happens and before people exfiltrate your data. Want to raise a hand? Yeah? You're 100%? Now, okay. Let me ask another question, maybe a little bit easier this time. Raise your hand if you think that your risk tooling is reducing your risk effectively instead of creating alerts that you're going to triage next week and the week after. Anybody want to raise their hand? All right, you guys are not alone. You're not alone. I didn't see any hands go up other than my friend Gavin. Now, let's see why this is happening. To be very clear, all the things that used to work in 2010 will get you burnt in 2025, right? We used to take security as perimeter defense, as I heard patch management earlier. And an understanding of sort of getting the right information out, right? But now, what happened? What happened a few years ago? First, your workloads left the building. Then your users left the building. And now with Gen AI, your data is also leaving the building. Why this becomes super interesting is because in the Gen AI world, AI and AI agents are actually writing your infrastructure code, then automatically deploying it in environments that you didn't even know existed 30 seconds ago. Right? Think about that. We're chasing AI agents with technology that was meant to help us when we had time after an incident occurred. Right? That's just fundamentally not true anymore. And we can't think of perimeters because what does a new perimeter look like? Is identity your new perimeter? Can somebody say identity is a new perimeter? Network is the perimeter? Actually, the chatbot window is now your new perimeter, right? Think about that for a second. Let's talk about one false equivalency. Compliance is not actually security, right? It's good documentation, but it's not great defense. What do I mean by that? Don't get me wrong, the DPDP initiative, fantastic, major step forward. The BIS infrastructure, the BIS standard, also major step forward. But at the end of the day, that's not going to defend you when there is a problem. Now, I think of compliance as, think about the Purana, right? The scripture that we used to have. Good wisdom, really great stuff in there. Not a lot of people read that, and even fewer follow it. Right? While we are trying to figure out what's the right way to do things, attackers are not looking at scriptures, they're churning out shell scripts. What they're doing is not worrying that your data security is ISO compliant or not. They're looking for the S3 bucket, which is externally exposed so that they can get the data out. Now, I'm going to drop all of the philosophy here for a second and say we've observed this in our own honeypots. There's research that we published called a Scarlet-Eel attack, where somebody went from breaching a cloud account to exfiltrating data in about 220 seconds. And if I get that right, that's about 3 minutes and 40 seconds from compromise to impact. Right? Things are moving that quickly. And let's talk about shift left for a second because this has been a trend for a long time. And it's built on a very interesting financial incentive. What was the financial incentive? If you solve problems early, it's cheaper to fix those security issues rather than doing in production or rather than doing in runtime. It's great, but actually there's been 0 empirical studies that have proven that to be true. Still a good idea. You want to find problems before they actually become flaws in production. But how do you do that in a modern application where 70 to 90% of your overall code base is actually open source? You don't control it, you didn't write it, your developers don't check in code to it, and the last time there was a check into that was done by coder123 in 2020. So now, where do you shift left? What do you fix? We've built this beautiful infrastructure on top of a little piece of foundation, which comes from open source. What do you do with that? What do you fix? Where do you go? Developers are now looking at SCA reports that are the size of the IPL rulebook and trying to understand what do they do. So eventually, they create lots of exceptions. You guys, as security team members, are constantly chasing those developers, and they say, not my problem, I didn't write it, I can't fix it. So we create exceptions, and we think we're nice and safe and secure because the dashboards look clean. Great. So developers eventually are going to run as fast as possible to production. Right? Testing late doesn't help because that becomes super expensive for you. That is true. Right? Doing all of these guardrails doesn't also help because they're blowing through it. What we need to do is give them paved paths. That's the future forward for what was shift left. Give them golden images, give them the right policy as code so that you're providing the right controls in the right places, and make sure that they have secure defaults and secure configurations so that they can move forward with confidence. But what do you do? Again, right, going back to that open source problem. What do you do when you don't control what you need to fix? When there is nowhere to shift, right? You've got to be able to get to defensibility. What's your plan for when you find a zero-day vulnerability in something that you don't control? Or let's talk about Gen AI. You have a black box third-party model, an LLM, that you've been training on your own data for the last 3 months and your business needs. How do you make sure that that's secure? That's where we have to change our thinking from fixing to defending. Can we put the right controls in place for isolating problems, containing, and making sure that you don't lose data when time comes to it? Because I'll tell you what, right? Prompt injection used to be the hot thing a few months ago, but at this point, we're way past it already. We're looking at RAG poisoning, we're looking at data exfiltration, and what's even scarier, is that now we're looking at AI agents hallucinating very dangerous, destructive controls in cloud. So this stuff, unlike malware, actually doesn't even really have to be super malicious, right? What's the best part about AI? It just has to be super confident and super wrong, all at the same time. And then you've got something that's wreaking havoc in your overall environment, which is why we have to rethink the threat model for AI, right? You can't control prompts. You cannot pre-audit real-time decisions and reasoning. And you can't really rely on guardrails because we know that people blow through guardrails every other day. There are examples all over on X, Twitter, whatever we want to call it these days, where somebody is talking about how through some prompting they were able to discover training data and then be able to pull things out without even ever writing a single line of code. So we have to take a basic first principles approach to the threat model. We have to control the overall environment. I'm not even going to get into MCP right now because MCP is going to be another 2-hour discussion. Really good stuff, but we have to assume that LLMs are backdoored. Anything that you use, we have to assume that every single thing in and every single thing out has to have the right authentication, the right authorization, and that you're making sure that the data that is coming out is wrapped in the right policies. But let's pose a different question. I think this was addressed in the earlier session, that AI is almost a double-edged sword, whatever you want to call it, right? So if AI is really good at finding flaws, and AI is really good at red teaming, maybe the answer here is to hack ourselves out of the problem, right? Google has actually proven this. There was a project which discovered a legitimate zero-day vulnerability in open source code. And with that project, we're able to get through this information much faster than any bug bounty would have, right? Scales tremendously. But the reality is that right now it's advantage hackers, advantage malicious actors, because the script kiddies who really used to do a lot of work before or were easily deterrable are seeing tremendous gains from AI. AI is effectively writing the malware for them. And at the moment, this is not really a double-edged sword. It is asymmetric as a tool. So we, as a team, have to make sure that we're using AI for defensibility. We're using AI to make sure that our controls hold up. Now let's switch to what we can do with all of these problems, right? I've been listening to a lot of the sessions, and come to think of it, when was the last time that you asked your SOC about Kubernetes controls or Kubernetes questions? And you got an answer as like, let me Google that for you. Because SOCs have not yet matured to a cloud-native infrastructure. We are kind of still dealing with the SOCs, with 2015 style technology or 2015 style use cases, and this is actually not a skills gap, right? It's a tooling gap to quite an extent, because what do we look at? We look at a SIEM technology, which says, okay, give me all of your data, and I'm going to write detections afterwards, right? We have service meshes, we have ephemeral infrastructure, and we have IAM policies running in like 600 accounts on the public cloud. But we're still looking for command.exe somewhere running, right? And that's because the promise of the SIEM is very different than what you need in today's environment. Now let's take a look at the second big tool in the Security Operations Center, the EDR, right? The EDR looks slightly different. It says, okay, I'm going to find your endpoint, I'm going to find your user, I'm going to make sure that I can control all of that. Awesome. Love it. Now, tell me, what is the endpoint in the cloud? A Lambda function? Serverless container? Where is the endpoint? What are you going to do with that? So at the end of the day, you have to make sure that you have the right cloud detection tool that works in real time. It's looking at all of the data, and it's making the right choices so that you can detect intent, you can detect lateral movement, and then you can detect when something is happening in real time so that you can start responding to it. And because I said the word response in the old world looks like this. It's still troublesome. You got to kill processes or re-image things. But response in the new world is a little bit challenging. Hopefully I'm not covering this up. Here's what happens, right? You need to make sure that you're using the right tool that understands the right technology that you have, right? You have to make sure that your tool chain can understand the workloads that you're running, can take the right actions, and it's really not just about killing things. What is it about is API orchestration. API orchestration across workloads, across identities, and across infrastructure. It's complicated. It's not like how it used to be. It is very different, and you need the right tooling for that, and you need the right skills for that. So let's land this thing, right? I've been talking for a while. What are the key things, right? If you remember a few things, here are the things to remember, at least in my opinion, and hopefully this resonates with the room. Compliance gives you a good floor. It does not really give you security that you need, not the security that India deserves. Shift left is great, but it does not work if you don't control your application. We have to think about defensibility. Defensibility when you cannot fix everything. And we have to be very careful in the world of Gen AI. If we are not using it against the attackers, they are already weaponizing it against us. So we have to use the right tools. And lastly, I would really say this, that in a cloud-native environment, not just public cloud, but cloud-native environment, if we're not detecting in real time, and if we're not defending and controlling, then all we're doing is writing reports of impact afterwards. And that's not super helpful. The one actionable additional piece that I would give is that Sysdig contributed a cloud-native tool which does a lot of the above. It's an open source tool. It is CNCF graduated, so it's blessed by the Cloud Native Foundation. And I'd invite you to use it. Check it out. Maybe your teams are already using it in your infrastructure. This is what we find out all the time when we go to even public cloud providers. They use Falco in their infrastructure. So please, I would encourage you guys to check it out. Thank you for having me here and giving me this opportunity. If you guys like this, if you guys want to continue this conversation, we're bringing our flagship event to Bangalore in July. I'd invite all of you guys to attend and take part in that conversation. And because we're good friends here at ESCON, I'd say that please participate in our exclusive exec exchange with my partner in crime, or, well, I should say my partner in defense. Sergey, he's our CISO, and we're going to be joined by a special guest, Sandeep from Aadhaar, who's their CISO. So we're super excited to host that event. And for now, I think your future has been distributed to you guys. You have little pieces of tarot cards that are going to be read right at our booth outside. So please join us at our booth. Thank you very much.